G'day viewers, this is a overview video, new machine day for me, and we're looking here at a Hafco Chinese lathe. It's a model AL 356V, which means it's a 14 inch by 40 inch for you US viewers, 350 mil by 1 meter between centers. It's a single phase, 240 volt, I think it's about a 2 horsepower. 8 inch chuck 3 jaw, another 8 inch 4 jaw chuck. The speeds, I'll bring us into a closer view. We have a look on the headstock here. You'll see that there are two ranges of gears, high and low. The low range is from 40 to 400 RPMs. High is 220 to 1,800 RPM, and those are controlled via a potentiometer here. So you can actually control the RPMs of your chuck via that potentiometer without having to stop and change gears, which can be a handy feature when you're facing off. So this is not a review of the lathe because, you know, I'm not a fitter and turner. I'm a hobbyist and only just starting out. So this is an overview. And the reason I'm doing the overview on the AL 356V is that when I was interested in purchasing this lathe, I could find very little on YouTube about this specific model, with a couple of minor exceptions. So I thought, well, for anyone else that's trying to do their research, I know here in Forbes do put out some actual reviews of their lathes, but not this particular model. And I asked for a year or two whether they would, but it never eventuated. And here I am, I've taken delivery of it last week. And I thought, well, heck, you know, there'll be someone else out there that's trying to research about what lathe to get and why and how and all the rest. So I thought, well, hey, I'll try and cover a little bit of it so that you can get some information. I mean, a lot of this information is available within the specs sheet on the Here in Forbes website. You can see down the bottom there is a foot brake. Whether I can get my fat hoof in there. I'm trying to film this with one hand at the same time, but there's a foot brake down there somewhere that you can push with your foot, for what it's worth. The swarf tray underneath. It has a longitudinal powered feed and also a powered cross feed. Comes with a quick change tool post up top. Has a flood coolant pump and delivery nozzle. Has a work light as well. Safety guard over the chuck. This one also has a DRO fitted. Came with the package. There were 4 tool holders in the package down there. I've added some tools that I had to buy, but you know, left and right turning tool, boring bar and a parting tool and so on. You can buy extra tool holders obviously, or you can make them yourself if you're that clever. I'm not yet, but I'm working on it. Tailstock's 4 Morse taper. What else can I tell you? Tailstock's got a couple of locks on it. Oh well, I'm gonna say a couple of locks. It's got a quill lock there, and the actual sliding lock here so that you can slide it along and lock it when you're ready. I can't remember how much quill travel there is. We'll have a look. Probably a bit, I think it was over 3 inches, 3.5 or something like that, 4 maybe. 2.5 there, 3, 3.5, 4. I think there's at least 4 inches of travel there on your quill. What else can I tell you? Induction hardened ground bedways. Oh, it's an enclosed gearbox for your feeds and speeds. Down the bottom, all your threading charts, etc. on the side there. Oh, here's something that's of interest too. The spindle comes with a spider on it and is 52 millimeters or 2 inches in diameter, which is a little bit bigger than some of the other models, and that was one of the reasons I chose this model over some of the other offerings. There's a Taiwanese model, the AL 1000D, which is a similar size, 14 by 40, 8-inch chuck, so on. It's 3-phase and it's made in Taiwan. And possibly it's a better lathe. Everyone tells me Taiwanese quality is better. But also, you know, it's what fits your budget. I know in Australian dollars, this thing landed here was just a fraction over 9,000. The AL 1000, which is the 3-phase model, is about 12,500. So it's a fair bit bigger chunk out of your budget. And if, you know, I'm not a production shop, I'm just a hobbyist, so I couldn't really justify the extra cash, and frankly, I didn't have it. But the AL 1000's got a smaller spindle diameter. I think it's, don't quote me, 40 mil, 1 3/8 or 1 5/8, something like that. But it's not as big a spindle diameter as this particular one. Also doesn't have the variable speed potentiometer. If you buy a 3-phase one, you can always add variable speeds to it. You can add your own tachometer, and you can add a variable frequency drive, and you can have variable speeds on a 3-phase lathe. But, you know, if you've just paid 12.5 grand for it, and you're going to have to spend another couple of $1,000 on modifications to make it do what this cheaper Chinese model will do standard as it arrives, well, you've got to take that into account in terms of your budget, what you're going to spend. Now, this thing weighs about 600 odd kilos, just over 600 kilo. It was delivered on a tail lift truck. It was was bolted to a skid and boxed and crated, and that was then metal strapped to a pallet underneath. So this arrived a week ago, and it's taken me a week to get to this point of having it actually unboxed off its skid on the ground. It's still got to have leveling feet fitted yet, which means it'll have to be lifted up again. And in order to lift it up and get it off the skid, I used a hydraulic trolley jack under the skid, lifted one end and put a couple of paving bricks under there, and went the other end and did the same, and eventually got it up in the air enough to cut the straps and get the pallet out from underneath, and then eventually unbolt it from the skid. But in order to lift it up in here in my shed, I don't have any triangulated roof trusses that would lift 600 kilo. My roof trusses up here are a portal frame. So whilst I do have a hoist up there, it only lifts 400 kilo. And if I tried to lift this machine, well, I think I'd spread the side frames, the side support poles, whatever you want to call them. I think I'd collapse the roof. So I ended up having to buy a 1-ton mobile gantry crane in order to be able to lift the lathe up and get it off its skid and get it set down safely on the concrete. I'll end up lifting it again to put the leveling feet underneath. And in order to do that, I ended up buying some 1 1/4 inch or whatever that was, 31.7 mil diameter, 1200 mil long, 4 foot long, 1040 steel. I figure I can use that for projects later on. This is a lot of the guff. Anyway, those things go through, those steel poles go through the holes just under there. And there's one at the other end, and they go straight through. And I use these couple of lifting slings here, and the gantry crane slid into position over the lathe, and I was able to lift it up, get the skid out. These are pretty top-heavy machines, and they're unbalanced with the majority of the weight towards the spindle headstock end. So they're quite difficult to lift. I wouldn't recommend doing what I did and putting it up on bricks. You know, bricks can crack and you only got to topple it over once to be in a world of hurt. So far better to lift with the Gantry Crane if you can. Because I've got a Bridgeport mill there, I can also use the Gantry Crane for lifting materials up onto the table of the Bridgeport. I can use it for lifting heavy materials into the chuck and so on the lathe. So for me, that'll come in handy. A bit expensive, you know, it's another $1,000 for a gantry lifting crane, which once you've already parted out 9 for the lathe, certainly hits the hip pocket, and it limits your ability to stock up on tooling immediately after you've just taken delivery of your lathe. What else can I tell you about it? Yes, it has a foot brake, has the emergency stop button, has a flood coolant arrangement. You can see the controls over here. Emergency stop, flood coolant, your potentiometer for RPMs, jog button there, and a reset button here, forward and reverse feed here, high and low gears up here, your tachometer just there, and all your charts, as I said, down the side. There's a spider inside the door here. When you open it up, the end of the spindle comes with a lathe spider for centralising longer stock. And there's a safety switch on the end of the door. You can see a little plunger there that keys in there, and the lathe won't go unless that door's closed and that plunges in, like so. What else can I tell you? You can pop it into low gear by turning the chuck at the same time a tiny bit. And you can then lift up this handle here or lower it down, and that reverses your chuck's direction. There. So if I put it in that one, the way it would normally turn, and we're in low gear, to increase your RPMs, you have your potentiometer and your chuck there, and you can wind that up, and you can see in the top left hand corner there your RPMs, and you do the same thing in high gear. It's reasonably quiet running lathe, and you know, there's probably quieter ones out there, but for what I need, I think it'll do. Quick change tool post, I think I mentioned. Compound, that should just about cover it. I can't think of a great deal more. I will do a review on this lathe once I've owned it long enough and I'm tooled up enough to actually use it and get a bit of a feel for it. It does come with a travelling steady and a fixed steady. Comes with a little oil bottle, which I filled up with ISO 68 or whey oil. Comes with a little toolbox full of bits and bobs, a couple of dead centers and sleeves and so on. Comes with a faceplate as well as a 4-jaw 8-inch fixed, or 8-inch chuck. So the basics that you need. It came with 4 of those tool holders and a chuck key, obviously. You can buy additional tool holders. You can make some extra ones yourself if you've got a mill and you're competent. Look, for what they cost, honestly, I'd buy them. Just get on with making what it is you want to make rather than making tools for the sake of making tools. But to each his own. It's probably not a bad little project. You've got your rack under the cross slide and skirt there. You've got your 2 feed rods. Also has a, should have said that, has a threading dial on there. All the usual stuff that you would expect with any normal lathe. That's probably a long enough video, 15 minutes for new machine day. Like I said, I'll do a review once I've actually skilled and tooled up enough to be able to give an informed opinion about how well it works or doesn't work. I've yet to run it in. I've yet to make chips with it. One thing it didn't come with is a 4-Morse taper arbor for the tailstock or a drill chuck. So I'll need to purchase or make a 4-Morse taper arbor for the tailstock with a 6 Jacobs chuck taper on the other end to fit a drill chuck on. Otherwise I can't drill any centers or whatever. Yeah, that should just about cover it. If you've got any specific questions, is there something you want to know about this particular model of lathe that I didn't cover? Because I've done this off the top of my head with one take, because I don't know how to edit stuff. So by all means, put it in the questions, in the comments, and I'll do my best to get back to you and answer you. If I don't know, I'll find out. Anyway, thanks for that. Hope you enjoyed it. Catch you later.